There is a hidden gap in our human story, a silence so deep that entire civilizations have slipped through it unnoticed. Across the world, from the floors of drowned coastlines to the shadows of forgotten mountains, we find structures that simply should not exist. Mega caves carved with machine-level precision, stones balanced in ways that defy gravity, and underwater monuments shaped by hands we can no longer identify. These are not accidents of nature. They are echoes, traces of a past far older, far stranger, and far more advanced than anything our history books dare to admit. And tonight, here on Sleeping Historian, we're going to step into that forgotten world and confront the mysteries that mainstream archaeology refuses to touch. So settle in. And let's begin today's journey into the secrets buried beneath our feet. If these ancient anomalies are not what they appear to be, then the consequences are far greater than a simple historical correction. It means our entire timeline, our origins, our technological development, even the rise and fall of past civilizations has been built on incomplete or misunderstood evidence. If the structures we explore tonight were not made by the cultures we attribute them to, then humanity has lived through cycles of advancement and collapse far beyond what we can imagine. It means whole chapters of our past were erased, forgotten, or buried long before the first written word. And if we continue to ignore these clues, we risk repeating the same disappearances that wiped previous civilizations off the face of the earth. Tonight's discoveries aren't just archaeological curiosities. They may be warnings. Stretching between Doneshkadi in India and Manor Island in Sri Lanka lies a formation that has challenged centuries of geological, historical, and cultural understanding, known today as Adam's Bridge. Its nearly 30-kilometer chain of raised limestone shoals appears less like a natural feature and more like the remains of a vast engineered causeway. Ancient Sanskrit texts refer to it as Rama Setu, bridge said to have been constructed around 5076 BC, long before any civilization recognized by mainstream archaeology existed. For generations, this was dismissed as mythology, until modern imagery began to raise uncomfortable questions. In 1998, NASA's Landsat satellite images revealed Adam's Bridge from above, displaying an unnervingly straight alignment across the sea. Natural marine formations typically curve, disperse, and break apart under tidal forces. But Adam's Bridge maintains a consistent direction with a precision that startled researchers. The mystery deepened in 2003 when the Geological Survey of India examined core samples near Rameswaram. The coral on the surface appeared only a few centuries old, while the sand beneath was thousands of years older. Even more puzzling, the coral rested not on a natural reef, but on compacted sand-an inverted sequence that suggests the coral may have been brought or deposited long after the base layer already existed. The context of ancient sea levels adds another layer. During the end of the last ice age, roughly 10,000 to 7,000 BCE, ocean levels were far lower, and much of the region between India and Sri Lanka was exposed land. Geological models indicate that a natural ridge once connected the two landmasses. If that ridge emerged above sea level during the late Pleistocene, it could have served as a foundation for modification by early humans long before the rise of the Indus Valley or any known South Asian kingdoms. Archaeological evidence supports this possibility. Sri Lanka's Balangota culture is dated to around 30,000 BCE, and southern India contains human sites even older, such as Julapiram, dating to nearly 74,000 BCE. Historical memory complicates the picture. The Ramayana, written over 3,000 years ago, describes a causeway built from the Indian mainland to Lanka, formed using stones placed in a continuous line across the ocean. For centuries, this was viewed as symbolic storytelling. Yet the text describes a structure located exactly where the modern formation lies today, connecting the same to geographic points. Whether this is coincidence or an echo of ancient memory remains open to interpretation. British cartographers who surveyed the region in 1804 reported that the entire structure was nearly walkable at low tide, while earlier Tamil and Sinhalese sources mention a land route that occasionally submerged during high tide. This suggests the bridge has gradually degraded rather than recently formed. Radiocarbon studies in 2007 revealed organic material beneath the shoals dating back nearly 18,000 years, indicating that the ridge itself may be far older than the layers now resting above it. Marine studies throughout the late 20th century documented unusually rounded limestone blocks arranged in linear clusters, stones that appeared displaced in ways inconsistent with natural currents, and coral fragments that did not match local reef ecology. Several researchers noted that the shoals resist strong tides more effectively than typical sand formations, almost as if they were reinforced or stabilized. Yet the most striking aspect is what the structure lacks. Across its full length, scientists have found little trace of natural coral reef formation. The deeper stones do not contain embedded marine fossils, and the layers do not reflect the slow, predictable accumulation expected of untouched natural shoals. Instead, large boulders rest atop sand in a pattern that is difficult to attribute purely to wave action. These observations have fueled ongoing debate about whether Adams Bridge represents a natural ridge modified by early humans, a fully engineered ancient causeway constructed thousands of years before mainstream timelines, or a unique marine formation shaped by geological processes not yet fully understood. The broader context of submerged ancient structures across the world makes the debate even more compelling. Sites such as Yonaguni in Japan, Dorka off the coast of Gujarat, and the Bimini Road in the Caribbean all lie along ancient coastlines, swallowed by rising oceans after the Ice Age, if even one of these structures is proven to be artificial. Then the history of human civilization extends far deeper into antiquity than currently acknowledged, suggesting that advanced cultures may have risen and fallen long before recorded history began. Today, Adams Bridge remains one of the most contested and restricted archaeological zones in South Asia. Scientific investigations are limited. Political sensitivities complicate research, and the formation continues to erode slowly beneath the waves. Yet it endures. The silent line of ancient stones stretching across turquoise water, a structure that refuses to conform to simple explanations. And as the tides wash over it each day, the same question continues to linger, as unresolved now as it was centuries ago. Is Adams Bridge a natural formation or the surviving remnant of an ancient engineered pathway? Hidden beneath the quiet village of Shehan Bakun in Zhejiang province lies one of the most baffling archaeological discoveries in East Asia. A network of enormous man-made caverns so vast, so technically precise, and so far beyond the documented capabilities of early China that scholars still cannot explain their existence. These are the Longyou Caves, 24 massive subterranean chambers carved directly into solid sandstone, each one rivaling the size of a modern cathedral. Yet across more than 2,000 years of Chinese dynastic history, known for its meticulous record-keeping, there is not a single written reference to their construction. The caves were discovered only in 1992, when villagers drained what they believed were ancient bottomless ponds. As the water sank, the floor of a colossal chamber emerged, revealing smooth walls, towering ceilings, and the unmistakable marks of deliberate human craftsmanship. Before long, additional ponds were drained, and one staggering fact became clear. Each water-filled depression was the flooded entrance to another monumental cave. By the end of the year, 24 such caverns had been identified, all cut with the same precision and the same signature pattern of parallel chisel marks. Dating the caves remains extremely difficult. The scholars agree on one point. They were carved before the Qin dynasty unified China in 221 BCE, that era's administrative documents record. Everything from road repairs to warehouse construction, yet they make no mention of a project requiring thousands of laborers and decades of work. The absence of any record is deeply troubling, suggesting either that the caves are far older than imperial China, that they were built by a culture predating written history, or that all references to their construction were deliberately erased. The scale of the caverns is astonishing. Many reach heights close to 30 meters. With ceilings cut into perfectly flat planes and pillars positioned with such precision that even modern structural engineers express surprise at their stability. The interior walls are flawlessly straight, the corners sharply defined, and the chisel lines, spaced with machine-like uniformity, run uninterrupted across every surface. No tool capable of producing such consistent markings has ever been found. The total volume of stone removed from all 24 caves exceeds 1 million cubic meters. And yet, in the surrounding area, there is no trace of this material. No spoil mounds, no discarded rubble, no reused blocks in nearby structures, nothing. The complete disappearance of such an enormous quantity of rock is one of the greatest mysteries of the site. The architectural intelligence displayed within the caves is equally perplexing. Column spacing, ceiling thickness, and load-bearing distribution appear to have been calculated with advanced geological understanding. Some chambers share identical dimensions as though following a master plan, yet no blueprint, sketch, or written instruction has survived. Certain caves feature raised platforms, alcoves, and channels carved with near-modern precision. In a few chambers, geometric motifs appear on the walls, but they do not resemble any known artistic style from the Shangzhou, Qin, or Han periods. Instead, they seem abstract, perhaps symbolic, or potentially related to structural guidelines. Their purpose remains undetermined. Adding to the strangeness are the cave's acoustic properties. In some rooms, sound reverberates in unusual ways. In others, it is absorbed almost entirely. These effects suggest that acoustics may have been a deliberate factor in the cave's design, hinting at ceremonial or ritual use. Yet there is no evidence of habitation. No pottery, no hearths, no burial items, no soot. No artwork depicting daily life. Nothing to indicate that humans ever lived or worked inside for extended periods. The lack of cultural context is perhaps the most unsettling part of the mystery. Great works in ancient China, palaces, tombs, canals, granaries, always include inscriptions, dedications, or official records. The Longyou Caves, however, are completely silent. No names of craftsmen, no imperial decrees, no religious texts, and no signs of political or cultural ownership have ever been found. This suggests either a lost civilization whose identity vanished long before the Qin dynasty, or a deliberate effort to conceal the cave's origins. When theories are proposed, none survive scrutiny. Some suggest the caves were ancient quarries, but quarries leave behind irregular walls and nearby waste material. The Longyou Caves are smooth, geometrically consistent, and completely devoid of debris. Others claim they were military bunkers or storage warehouses, but their vast decorative interiors and risky unsupported ceilings make such utilitarian purposes unlikely. Tomb theories collapse as well. No human remains or burial goods have ever been discovered. Even the idea that natural erosion shaped the caves is impossible. No natural process creates chambers of this scale with uniform tool marks carved into every surface. What remains is a structure, or rather a network of structures, that appears engineered with knowledge beyond what is traditionally recorded in early Chinese history. They demonstrate planning, mathematics, geological insight, organized labor, and architectural mastery of a level that should not exist for the period suggested. And yet they do exist, standing silently beneath the earth. Untouched for centuries until the villagers drained those ponds in 1992. After more than 30 years of research, archaeologists, engineers, and historians remain unable to provide a definitive explanation. The caves offer no inscriptions, no artifacts, no cultural signatures, and no historical memory. It is as though the builders completed their monumental work and then vanished entirely from the timeline of history. And this leads to the question that continues to haunt researchers around the world. How did a forgotten civilization carve 24 megacaves with perfect precision and leave no trace of themselves? Muaratakus, Indonesia. Hidden deep within the forests of Riau and central Sumatra, far from the great capitals of ancient Southeast Asia, stands one of Indonesia's most perplexing archaeological sites. Known as Muaratakus, this red brick temple complex defies the historical, architectural, and geographical patterns of its region. It is a monument that should not exist where it does, built with materials that do not belong to its landscape and shaped by a knowledge system no surviving culture claims as its own. Nothing about Muaratakus fits neatly into the established timeline of Indonesian history. The first anomalies appear in the bricks themselves. At a glance, they resemble ordinary red bricks. But laboratory analysis reveals something startling. The clay and mineral mixtures used to create them do not match the soft riverine soil of Riau. Embedded within the bricks are yellow river sands, sandstone particles, and mineral signatures from regions hundreds of kilometers away. Transporting such materials through dense forest and swampy terrain would have required an advanced logistical network or a large organized population, yet the historical record shows no such community in this region during any era. Stranger still, the The bricks were fired at unusually high temperatures and bonded with a unique material some researchers describe as an early form of geoplymer. This ancient cement has no known counterpart in Sumatra or in the architectural traditions of the Srivijaya Empire. The civilization mainstream scholarship credits with building the site. The structures themselves deepen the contradictions. Candi Malagai, the central tower, resembles a Sri Lankan stupa, but does not follow the proportions of familiar Theravada Buddhist architecture. Candi Tua, with its stepped base, seems inspired by early Indian prototypes, yet follows none of their standardized measurements. Candi Palenka, a plain square platform with no ornamentation, shrine, or iconography, is particularly unusual, a foundation with no clear ritual or symbolic purpose. Across the entire complex, there is a complete absence of reliefs, statues, or images of deities. Even more remarkable, there is not a single inscription, no royal dedications, no religious verses, no donor acknowledgments, no artisan signatures, nothing. For a monumental religious site in Southeast Asia, this silence is highly abnormal. The foundations beneath the temples add yet another layer to the mystery. Ground studies conducted in the 2010s revealed that the complex sits atop a carefully engineered base of compacted pebbles, crushed brick, river stones, and a hardened bonding material unlike anything found elsewhere in Indonesia. This multi-layered substructure has kept the site stable for centuries, despite the soft and flood-prone soil of Riau. Such engineering sophistication appears in no other local architecture and suggests a technical understanding far beyond what is documented for the region's early cultures. Even stranger is the site's astronomical alignment. Several structures deviate from the typical east-west orientation of Buddhist monuments and instead match angles found in ancient Indian stellar calendars. This hints at deliberate astronomical planning, a level of cosmological knowledge that seems out of place in an isolated region with no known advanced scientific tradition. Why a remote inland forest would require a star-aligned ceremonial center remains one of the site's most troubling questions. For decades, mainstream archaeology attributed Muaratakus to the Srivijaya Empire, 7th–13th century CE. A powerful maritime kingdom known for its Buddhist scholarship and extensive trade networks. But the site contradicts Srivijaya's architectural style. Brick technology, inscriptions, and documented building practices. Srivijaya left written records across Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula, yet not a single text references Muaratakus. No Buddhist statues of the period, no inscriptions in Pallava or Khoi script, and no characteristic Srivijayan iconography appear anywhere on the site. The absence is so complete that many historians now doubt the site belonged to Srivijaya at all. This has led to alternative interpretations, each more challenging than the last. Some scholars suggest an earlier date, perhaps around 400 BCE, based on the archaic brickwork and the absence of Indianized features common in later centuries. Others push the timeline further back, proposing a pre-1000 BCE origin, a period long before documented state societies emerged in central Sumatra. A growing group of researchers even argues that Muaratakus may be the remnant of a forgotten culture entirely outside the known historical sequence of Indonesia, a culture proficient in long-distance material transport, high-temperature brick firing, advanced foundation engineering, and astronomical design. Yet if such a culture existed, it vanished completely. There are no grave sites, no pottery fragments, no tablets, no tools, and no art. No trade goods indicate contact with other civilizations. No habitation layers surround the complex. It stands entirely alone, unsupported by any settlement before or after. Its architectural style appears once and never again. Its construction methods, materials, and measurements have no parallels anywhere in Southeast Asia. In the archaeological landscape of Indonesia, Muaratakus is a solitary anomaly, a cultural island surrounded by silence. Local folklore passed down for generations seems to acknowledge this strangeness. Some stories describe giants who built the temples and then disappeared. Others claim foreign visitors constructed the site as a sacred center before traveling onward. These myths cannot be treated as literal history, yet they reflect a long-held belief among the region's inhabitants that the builders of Muaratakus were not the ancestors of the people living there today. What remains most troubling is the human absence. A project of this scale would have required hundreds of workers, skilled artisans, architects, and leadership. It would have demanded community coordination, specialized knowledge, and sustained cultural continuity. Yet no trace of those people survives, no descendants, no later buildings in their style, no evolving architectural tradition, nothing. It is as if an entire culture entered the forests of Riau, built this solitary complex with advanced methods, and vanished not long afterward, leaving behind only bricks, foundations, and unanswered questions. Today, Muaratakus stands quiet under the tropical sun, its red brick towers rising from the earth like fragments of a memory eroded by time. No inscriptions reveal its purpose. No artifacts explain its origins. No historical text claims it. The builders are gone, their identity erased, their legacy suspended in silence. And the only question that remains is the one that has haunted researchers for decades. Why did the entire culture vanish without a trace? Yonaguni, Japan's sunken megamonument. In the waters off Japan's far western Ryukyu Islands lies one of the most persistent archaeological puzzles of the last century. In 1987, a local diver surveying Yonaguni's coastline came across a structure that should not have been there. At a depth of 25 meters, he found immense stone terraces rising from the seabed. Their edges straight, their angles sharp, their forms arranged with such precision that they immediately raised more questions than answers. What he discovered became known as the Yonaguni Monument, a massive underwater formation, roughly 50 meters long and 20 meters wide, built or shaped in a way that looks unmistakably architectural. Its surfaces form broad platforms, narrow ledges, stair-like steps, and sharply cut walls that appear almost as if the sea were hiding the remains of a forgotten pyramid. Almost instantly, speculation erupted. Some researchers proposed that the monument could be the work of a prehistoric Pacific civilization, possibly dating back to the end of the last ice age as early as 10,000 BCE, when sea levels were far lower, and lands now drowned beneath the Pacific were still part of the human world. Others linked it to Japan's Jomon culture, one of the oldest known cultures in East Asia, whose presence stretches as far back as 12,000 BCE. But just as many experts dismissed those ideas by pointing toward natural formations like the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland or basalt cliffs in Iceland, these formations also possess strikingly geometric shapes produced entirely through natural processes. Yonaguni sits along a major tectonic boundary, and earthquakes frequently fracture sandstone into straight edges and layered plains. For these scholars, the monument is simply nature at its most dramatic. Yet the debate does not end here, because while nature can create sharp angles and flat surfaces, Yonaguni contains a series of features that remain difficult to reconcile with random geological fracturing. Multiple terraces rise in consistent steps. Narrow passageways appear to run parallel. Certain sections form near-perfect right angles. Large, flat platforms span across its highest levels, their surfaces unusually smooth for natural rock, shaped only by water and seismic activity. Some researchers studying the monument at close range have pointed out that several edges appear intentionally trimmed. Certain surfaces possess a uniform texture inconsistent with known erosion patterns. There are also features that resemble retaining walls, columns, and what some interpret as the base of a staircase or a ceremonial platform. None of this proves human construction, but it certainly complicates the natural formation explanation. Another aspect fuels the mystery. If the monument were built or shaped by humans, it must have been constructed before the region was submerged, which took place sometime between 10,000 and 8,000 BCE as sea levels rose dramatically after the last ice age. This would place Yonaguni's origin thousands of years earlier than ancient Egypt, Sumer, or the Indus Valley, long before mainstream archaeology acknowledges the existence of large stoneworking cultures. The absence of artifacts also deepens the debate. No pottery, tools, or inscriptions have been recovered from the monument. No trace of habitation or ritual activity lies nearby. This absence of cultural material is a major reason why many experts remain skeptical of the idea that Yonaguni was built by human hands. And yet the lack of artifacts does not entirely resolve the mystery, because coastal sites dating back to the end of the Ice Age are often poor in survivable material. Much of what once existed near ancient shorelines was destroyed or carried away by rising seas. What remains is a structure that refuses to fit neatly into either explanation. If Yonaguni is natural, it is one of the most convincingly architectural natural formations ever discovered. And if it is artificial, then it suggests the existence of a culture capable of large-scale stone engineering thousands of years before the first documented civilizations. Complicating matters further is the fact that other underwater anomalies exist throughout the Pacific and Indian Oceans, from the submerged, sitting near Dwarka in India, to the Bimini Road in the Bahamas. Many of these sites lie along ancient coastlines now underwater, leading some researchers to propose that early coastal societies may have built significant structures that were later submerged and forgotten as global sea levels rose. But unlike those sites, Yonaguni remains uniquely ambiguous. It lacks artifacts that could firmly establish its origin as human-made, yet its geometry is difficult to explain purely through natural forces. It is both too natural to be confidently labeled a ruin and too architectural to be dismissed without hesitation. More than 3 decades after its discovery, the monument continues to sit silently beneath the waves. A formation that feels like a message from a chapter of history we no longer understand. Divers who descend to Yonaguni describe the same feeling, that the site is intentionally shaped, that the layout is too deliberate, that the structure seems too orderly to be accidental. And yet, without inscriptions, tools, or material evidence, no definitive conclusion can be reached. The sea keeps its secrets well. What we are left with is a geological wonder that may also be an archaeological one. A formation that forces us to confront the limits of our understanding of ancient cultures, of lost coastlines, and of the deep past that vanished as the oceans rose. To this day, scholars remain divided. Some insist Yonaguni is a masterpiece of natural stone fracturing. Others argue it is a legacy of a civilization erased by time and rising seas. But until conclusive evidence is found, the monument will continue to occupy that rare space between myth and science, between geology and archaeology, between certainty and wonder. And so, the question remains. The same one that has echoed since 1987. Is the Yonaguni monument simply a striking natural formation, or the last surviving trace of an ancient civilization lost beneath the rising waters of the Pacific? Muaratakus, Indonesia. Deep in the forests of Riau, far from the political centers of classical Indonesia, lies an archaeological complex that refuses to fit into any historical framework. Known as Muaratakus, this cluster of red brick temples stands alone culturally, architecturally, and geographically, raising questions that mainstream archaeology has yet to answer. Scholars traditionally associate the site with the Srivijaya Empire, which flourished between the 7th and 13th centuries CE. Yet almost everything about Muaratakus contradicts what we know of Srivijayan construction, technology, and religious architecture. The mystery begins with the bricks themselves. Unlike the soft alluvial clay of Riau, the bricks at Muaratakus contain yellow river sand, sandstone particles, and mineral signatures sourced from regions located hundreds of kilometers away. The firing temperature is unusually high. Many bricks are bound together by a type of ancient cement that does not appear anywhere else in Indonesia's archaeological record. This suggests a level of engineering expertise that is inconsistent with the known material culture of the region during Srivijaya's peak. Transporting such materials over long distances, through wetlands and river systems, would have required either a logistical capacity far more advanced than recorded, or a large organized society entirely missing from historical documents. Equally confounding is the total absence of inscriptions. Throughout Southeast Asia, temple complexes routinely bear dedication stones, donor records, royal commissions, or religious iconography. But Muaratakus contains none. Not a single line of script, not a carved deity, not even a symbol marking patronage. This silence is historically anomalous. Shuriga left inscriptions elsewhere in Sumatra, yet none mention this complex. If they built Muaratakus, why did they ignore it in their own records? If they didn't build it, then who did? The architectural form only deepens the mystery. Structures such as Candi Tua, Candi Malagai, and Candi Bunsu resemble no other temples in the region. Malagai has a slender, towering, stupa-like form reminiscent of Sri Lankan designs, but the proportions do not match known Theravada templates. Candi Tua features an elevated platform that resembles early Indian prototypes, yet lacks the ornamentation, reliefs, or distinct Hindu-Buddhist traits those sites typically display. The overall layout feels isolated, not just geographically but conceptually, as if Muaratakus represents a knowledge system or ritual tradition unrelated to any nearby culture. Recent studies have revealed that parts of the complex appear aligned with astronomical markers, deviating slightly from the standard east-west orientation common in regional Buddhist architecture. The alignment corresponds more closely to ancient Indian calendrical and stellar systems, implying that whoever built the complex possessed a sophisticated understanding of celestial cycles. This level of astronomical integration is more consistent with older megalithic cultures than with the documented traditions of medieval Sumatra. Yet no transitional phases, precursor structures, or related sites exist anywhere in the surrounding region. The foundations introduce yet another puzzle. Beneath the temples lie layers of compacted pebbles, crushed brick, river stones, and a hardened bonding material resembling early geopalomor technology. This multi-layered base has kept the structure stable for centuries, despite Riau's soft flood-prone soil. Such engineering sophistication appears abruptly at Muaratakus, with no earlier or later examples in the area. If the knowledge came from elsewhere, its origins remain unknown. If it developed locally, all evidence of the culture that created it has vanished. Adding to the anomaly is the site's complete cultural isolation. No neighboring settlement of appropriate scale has ever been found. No burial sites, administrative buildings, or habitation layers surround the temples. There is no evidence of a city, a monastery, or even a village large enough to support the monumental construction effort Muaratakus required. A structure this large does not emerge from an empty landscape, yet the archaeological silence around it is absolute. It stands alone, unsupported by any known historical context. Because of these contradictions, several competing theories have emerged. One suggests that Muaratakus may predate Srivijaya entirely, representing an older, unrecorded civilization whose identity and knowledge system disappeared before written history took hold in Sumatra. Another theory proposes that Muaratakus was a ceremonial center built by a migrating group of monks or engineers from India or Sri Lanka, a short-lived enclave with specialized knowledge that left no trace after departing. A third theory speculates that the complex may have been part of a much earlier cultural horizon, predating Malaysia's and Indonesia's Indianized kingdoms by centuries or even millennia. Yet, none of these theories fully explain why the site uses materials sourced from distant regions, why its cement technology appears nowhere else, why its architecture is so singular, or why no inscription or artifact identifies its builders. Muaratakus is a paradox, a major religious complex with no documented patronage, technological achievement with no surviving tradition, an architectural anomaly in a region where almost every other structure follows directly traceable cultural lines. Today, the red brick towers of Muaratakus stand in quiet isolation, untouched by the monumental histories that shaped the rest of the archipelago. They do not fit into the timelines we know, nor do they resemble the cultures we can trace. They appear abruptly, fully formed, as if the entire knowledge system behind their construction existed only long enough to build them, and then disappeared forever. And so one question lingers over the silent bricks, the imported materials, the vanished techniques, and the empty historical record. Why did the entire culture vanish without a trace? Across continents and oceans, these ruins, carvings, tunnels, and monuments remind us of a truth we rarely acknowledge, that human history is not a straight line. It is a vast landscape filled with disappearances, forgotten achievements, and entire cultures that left behind their greatest works, but not their names. From underwater pyramids to silent red brick complexes, from impossible caves to structures aligned with the stars, each mystery challenges the timelines we take for granted. But the real question is not just how these ancient sites were built, it's what they reveal about the people who built them. Did these cultures rise and fall long before our recorded past began? They possessed knowledge that later empires could not understand? Or are we misinterpreting the clues left behind, seeing intention where nature shaped stone on its own? I want to hear your thoughts. Which of these mysteries feels like the work of an advanced early civilization? Which ones seem natural? And which ones, in your opinion, cannot be explained away so easily? Do you think humanity has lived through forgotten cycles of progress and collapse? Or are these sites simply reminders of how little we truly understand about the ancient world? Share your theories in the comments. I read all of them, and your ideas often shape the topics we explore next. If you enjoyed today's journey into the world's forgotten histories, make sure to subscribe to Sleeping Historian and turn on notifications so you never miss a new deep dive. More mysteries, more lost civilizations, and more hidden chapters of our past are coming soon. Until the next video. Sleep well, stay curious, and remember history does not always reveal itself. Sometimes we must go looking for it.